Madam President, members of the Chamber Executive, members of the Chamber of Commerce, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your kind invitation to be here with you this morning. What I want to do today is to share with you my vision for how I think Belize should be governed and how I would like to lead Belize if given the opportunity. While I will share with you specific initiatives and ideas on key sectors of the economy, this should not be taken as any kind of detailed policy statement. Consider it more as a statement of what my philosophical moorings are, the beliefs I hold that would inform my approach to policy making in Belize. I start by making 3 observations which I'm sure are shared by many Belizeans. Firstly, generation after generation of Belizeans has been told that Belize has great potential, but we seem unable to unlock that potential. Secondly, election after election, governments have frustrated our hopes and disappointed our expectations. Political interest consistently trump the national interest. Thirdly, Belize simply cannot afford to lose another decade. If we do not place our country firmly on the path to economic development and progress now, our legacy to future generations of Belizeans may be a Belize that is a failed state. I don't believe that we are consigned to that fate. I would like to lead a movement for change that puts Belize squarely on the path to progressive growth and development by finally casting aside personality politics and adopting a problem-solving, solutions approach to governing. So where do we begin? The next government we elect must have demonstrated that it has a credible plan to find solutions to our social and economic problems. This means setting aside grandiose plans and unrealistic goals and settling down to the basics of governing. It also means that leaders must suppress egos and the urge to settle scores against the opposing political party and focus on the task of building Belize. I have enough experience in government as well as in opposition to know that what we have to do is to get the basics right. If we can accomplish that, we would have laid the proper foundation to move Belize forward. What do I mean by getting back to the basics? When I use that phrase, I'm thinking, for example, about ensuring that our hospitals have essential medicines and good administration, providing accessible educational facilities to all Belizeans through the tertiary level, coming to a sober, realistic assessment of our capability to effectively combat crime and secure our borders from incursion, then enlisting help from countries that are able to assist us. Ensuring that we have good basic roads and clean, reliable public ground transport systems before aspiring to 4-lane highways. Creating an enabling environment for sustainable economic development. Keeping the existing cities and towns we have clean and organized before aspiring to build new cities like Mahogany Heights. As I see it, if governments of Belize are overwhelmed just dealing with providing the most essential services to its people, then government needs to focus on its core functions, delivery of reliable, quality, affordable public services. View the private sector not as a source of ever-increasing taxes to fund sprawling government projects and ambitions, but as the sector that holds the key to economic development by creating the enabling environment for the private sector to attract and undertake investment, grow businesses, and create employment. Reduce its bureaucracy and bureaucratic spending and enhance its regulatory and enforcement capacity. To put it concisely, I believe that the private sector must be facilitated by government to generate wealth and profits, while government must use its fair share of taxes to provide the essential public services in health, education, personal security, infrastructure, and to exponentially expand its capacity to impact the social ills of the country. Restoring confidence in the economy of Belize. How do we restore confidence in the Belizean economy? It starts with a smart national economic policy. Belize has 8,867 square miles, or 5,674,880 acres of land, 12 miles of territorial sea, 200 miles of exclusive economic zone, untold millions of barrels of petroleum and other valuable minerals, and the skill and ingenuity of an over 130,000 strong labor force. It has geographic proximity to and shares the English language with the wealthiest country on earth. It has other large markets in its immediate vicinity, and it has inherited the preferred and familiar English common law legal system. To maximize economic growth, we need to competently and efficiently maximize the use of all these resources and comparative advantages. Creating the enabling environment for private sector-led economic growth means not only pursuing tax policies which encourage instead of discourage investment in Belize, but also restoring confidence in the economy of Belize. The private sector must be confident that the government will always act to secure and not undermine the private ownership of property in Belize. The government must immediately act to circumscribe the circumstances in which private property can compulsorily be taken in the public interest in Belize, in order to forever prevent the taking of private property in this country at the expense of national economic interest in the pursuit of personality politics or to promote political interest. We must also act to ensure that in those instances where nationalizations are justifiably undertaken, that persons deprived of property are promptly compensated. To that end, there should be no compulsory acquisition of property in this country from any person, regardless of political or other persuasion, without there having been first voted and allocated sufficient funds to cover the cost of the acquisition. Apart from compulsory acquisitions, the government must lead by example and begin to take full responsibility for its own commercial transactions. It must be that when the government signs a commercial contract, that it is beyond question that the government will honor its commercial obligations. In business, government must be true to its own words and not seek to utilize powers of state to escape its obligations or to oppress competing private enterprise. To that end, the appointment of all judicial and public officers who exercise authority over business enterprises must truly be independent. Investment requires certainty. The next PUP government will enact a Foreign Investment and Promotion Act, which will provide clarity and survive successive regimes. Under this act, a net benefit test will be applied to determine the effect of the investment on economic activity in Belize, the degree of participation by Belizeans in the business in question, the effect of the investment on productivity, efficiency, technological development, product innovation, and product variety in Belize, the effect of the investment on competition, the compatibility of the investment with national, industrial, economic, and cultural policies, and the contribution to Belize's ability to compete globally. Let us look at a few specific sectors. The tourism sector. A special customized tourism investment incentives law will be established to reduce the cost of investing in tourism in Belize. Particular focus will be given to facilitate growth in target areas identified in a national tourism strategy plan. This, of course, will include Ambergris Caye and Placencia, but will target other areas for growth as well. Marketing through collaborative efforts amongst the government, BTB, and the private sector will be significantly more organized and targeted. We will solve the cruise port impasse to enable this subsector of tourism to sustainably develop and prosper alongside the overnight tourism product. Information and communications technology. Belize already has all the essential tools of production necessary to enable an immensely successful information and communications technology sector, particularly in the area of near-shore outsourcing for North American businesses that can not only attract substantial foreign and local investment and generate foreign exchange earnings, but also create thousands of high-paying jobs for Belizeans. These tools include such basic advantages as our language, our law, our people, our geographic closeness to North America compared to other outsourcing centers like India, the affordability and availability of real estate in Belize, and of course, bandwidth. Rather than stifle innovation and entrepreneurship with a monopolizing BTL that restricts the use of VoIP and the internet, we will open up the internet, the information superhighway. We will reduce the cost of bandwidth to allow the ICT sector to effectively compare and compete with other outsourcing centers in Latin America. Of course, this will mean VoIP for all of us as well. We will work along with the private sector with a view to establish e-commerce and outsourcing parks in population centers such as Belize City, Belmopan, Orange Walk, and San Pedro. New investment incentive policies and laws will be established to organize and encourage investment in this sector as well. Our education system will be enhanced throughout, up to and through the tertiary level, to properly train and bring skill and expertise to our population in the information and communications technology field. This will ultimately mean jobs not only in terms of telemarketing, but also in more high-paying areas such as software development, network design, and systems management. With our other comparative advantages as mentioned, this sector will undoubtedly become one of the leading employers in Belize. Agriculture. As the global economy begins to rebound, commodity prices increase. Agriculture will continue to be a primary area of focus for development and foreign exchange earnings, as well as for food security. Earmarked funds for agriculture will be used to enhance infrastructure for agriculture, rather than for politically driven, non-agriculture related projects. The DFC and other public financial institutions will certainly play a much larger role in providing cheaper financing to farmers. The DFC doesn't need to be converted into a commercial bank. It needs to serve its role as a development bank and reduce its lending rates to give farmers the chance to build and grow, rather than stifle them to debt from the very start. To further assist farmers annually exposed to hurricane or other natural disasters, we will lobby with multilateral institutions like the World Bank to create a fund for the procurement of hurricane and disaster insurance for our farmers, whether they may be in Corozal or Toledo, whether they produce banana or papaya. Petroleum and other minerals. In many ways, since the first commercial discovery of oil in Belize, the petroleum sector has been a learning process. From the UDP government, it is our respectful view that we have certainly learned what not to do. Crude oil, as we all know, is a major foreign exchange earner for Belize. However, it is also a non-renewable resource. Great care must be therefore given to maximize the proceeds therefrom, and to how the proceeds of this non-renewable resource are handled. To maximize proceeds, instead of private backroom deals with political cronies, who in turn sell their block licenses to make the profit that the government would have otherwise made, A transparent bidding process in accordance with known international norms will be implemented in the auctioning of blocks. This will ensure that the government maximizes its take from the outset. A petroleum fund was established under the last administration for the management of the proceeds derived. This UDP administration never utilized this structure for the long-term management and sustenance of these proceeds. Instead, it squandered these proceeds to meet severe budgetary shortfalls. Proceeds derived from petroleum should be used for the long-term benefit of the country, not for short-term consumption. The offshore sector. The offshore sector, since its conception, has grown leaps and bounds. It is a foreign exchange earning sector which provides high-paying jobs to its employees. Like tourism in many ways in the earlier years, most of its marketing has been undertaken solely by the private sector. While the government has passed laws introducing new products, and while it has established an International Financial Services Commission to regulate and to market the sector, the Commission and the government has done very little to market and promote this sector while collecting millions of US dollars in fees. Other jurisdictions with which Belize competes in this area, for example, the Cayman Islands, the British Virgin Islands, and Seychelles, consistently send their government representatives trekking across the globe to promote their offshore sector and or otherwise to negotiate tax treaties and the like. The offshore sector will be treated as what it is, a foreign exchange earning business. In this regard, it will get the support of the government. It will not get taxed any less favorably than those international competitors with which it competes, and certainly not less favorably than other foreign exchange earning businesses in Belize. Perhaps even more importantly, we will collaborate with the private offshore sector to aggressively market and support the sector internationally. The financial sector, in part because of the economic slowdown and loss of confidence in the economy, the financial sector has taken its hits. Non-performing loan ratios have risen to abnormally high levels under the current administration. With new draconian rules having been recently introduced by the central bank, the financial sector, without any action being taken, will shift away from productive sector lending into consumer and residential lending. And while interest rates should come down, given that rates internationally are near or at 0%, lending rates to the productive sector will not come down in tandem. If not addressed, the financial sector will be effectively incentivized to lend to the very sectors that drain foreign exchange, and at the same time effectively disincentivized to lend to the sectors that generate foreign exchange earnings and employment. These new rules will also have the spiraling effect of further flooding the already depressed market with additional foreclosure sales, which will drive down the price of real estate, thereby causing more foreclosures and thereupon further depressing the real estate market. These rules will be revisited to more properly align with the policy of economic growth through strategic incentives to foreign exchange earning sectors. Moreover, currently the banking system is so structured as to skew lending at cheaper rates and lower closing costs to non-residents engaging in foreign exchange earning businesses rather than to residents of Belize. These laws will be addressed with a view to ensure that residents will enjoy no less favorable costs and rates than non-resident investors in foreign exchange earning businesses. Furthermore, the current manner in which the central bank conducts its monetary policy creates an opportunity cost to banks of approximately 1.25% per annum on total deposit liabilities. Not surprisingly, the banks seek to pass on this cost to borrowers by lending at high rates. While prudent regulation requires the use of some of these tools of monetary policy that do attract such opportunity costs, we will seek to ensure that these tools are utilized in such a manner as to reduce the opportunity cost and at the same time incentivize the grant of loans to foreign exchange earning businesses. Real estate is another attractive investment product Belize has to offer. Government T-bills earn 2%. With central bank's reduction in the savings rate floor, savings rates earned by pensioners and others are at all-time lows in or around 2%. Term deposits are neither being accepted or being offered at around 4%. Real estate prices, on the other hand, have historically shown itself to generate abnormal rates of return. Over the past few years, we have seen the real estate market come to a virtual halt, partly to do with the global economic downturn, but also in part because of our own doing. The lands registry, when the UDP took office, was virtually shut down for almost a year. This dealt a crippling blow to the real estate business in Belize. The registry is now more bureaucratic and inefficient than ever. Moreover, on sale of real estate in Belize, you now have to pay 5% stamp duty and 12.5% on general sales tax. Not surprising, investment in real estate has slowed significantly. To maximize the opportunity that real estate offers to our economy, we will reduce the cost of investing in real estate. This includes minimizing the bureaucracy, the turnaround time, improving efficiency in handling real estate transactions, and re-engineering the tax structure to incentivize real estate development rather than real estate speculation. Immediate action. There is need for urgent and immediate action in respect of job creation. Analysis of the 2010 census reveals that the unemployment rate is 23.1%, or some 30,000 unemployed. To properly tackle unemployment, we will need to create a public employment agency, a jobs center, if you like. This jobs center will have several roles and purposes, including acting as a skills registry, providing job search services, providing workforce development services through education training and career pathway programs. This job center will in effect serve as both a data center and a complementary market maker between the prospective employer and employee. It will identify the unemployed, their skill level, and other attributes, efficiently place those who have the requisite skills already in demand, and train others with a view to meet and supply the requisite skills being or to be demanded in the context of the overall national economic development policy. The Job Center will not wait for you to come to it. It will look for you. By getting people back to work, we maximize the benefits from the most valuable yet most underutilized resource our country has to offer, our people. By focusing on sustainable employment, we assure sustainable economic development and growth. In this regard, there are some immediate policy decisions I would be prepared to advance for your consumption, analysis, and discussion. This is essential because the next government of Belize has to hit the ground running, signaling clearly that Belize is ready and open for business. Specific incentives on the table for discussion would include, and are not limited to these, but would include duty exemption on any capital goods and inputs into capital projects for the next 12 months. Specific incentives for value-added projects in forestry and food products, including meats and grains. A 12-month suspension of stamp duty on new loans for business expansion, capital good purchases, and loans for working capital targeting job creation. Review the business tax regime with a view to facilitating the payment of business tax credits as a refund and recognizing the inherent inequity in the payment of business taxes on losses. And drive the exports of grains, processed food, and non-traditional agricultural exports by promoting a zero-rated GST platform for packaging and other products used in the processing of these export products. The people's money. With discretion, there is power, and power corrupts. To tackle corruption, which in turn reduces cost and ease of doing business, as well as restoring confidence in our laws and economy, we will take a page out of the playbook of the iconic former Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew by taking legislative measures to eliminate discretion through the ranks of the public sector up to the minister and replace with eligibility standards. A comprehensive review of the public sector will be undertaken to identify, consolidate, and/or eliminate unnecessary bureaucratic processes with a view to improving efficiency and the ease of doing business in Belize. One of the most hurtful things for ordinary citizens is seeing ministers, their close advisors, and government officials jetting around the world, driving expensive SUVs with no limits on fuel spending, while they literally have to live from hand to mouth. We've actually got it backwards. Going into government should mean accepting 5 years or 4 years, in our case, of self-sacrifice because you are public-minded and inspired to make a difference. It shouldn't be a business and an opportunity to live high off taxpayers' money for 5 years. A cap should be put on all government international travel. Only the most essential travels should be approved and budgeted for. People should know how much of their money is being spent on international travel, who is going where, and for what purpose. Government officials who use government vehicles merely to get to and from work do not need their own government vehicles and fuel. Contract with the private sector to provide a small fleet of well-maintained buses exclusively for government workers. Only public officers who have field work around the country or whose official duties legitimately require a government ride should have their own vehicles. Remove extra layers of bureaucracy by doing away with municipal bodies or departments that create expense, especially if an existing government department can carry out that function. The Auditor General, the Contractor General, the House committees must all be allowed to do their work. But how do we make governments listen? For close to 15 years now, political reform has been at the center of political debates in Belize. Yet successive governments seem to go off on their own agendas once comfortably in office. There is need for urgent, meaningful reforms. The PUP will seek to enshrine in the Constitution a referendum for any proposed amendment to our Constitution which in any way undercuts or degrades the fundamental rights and freedoms of the people. The PUP will reduce the term of office to 4 years, and there will be a fixed date for elections in every 4-year cycle. We believe that 4 years is an adequate period for the electorate to be able to judge the performance or lack thereof of their elected representatives and to make an informed decision whether to renew the mandate or vote for a change. The fixed date for general elections will enhance greater public trust and participation in the democratic process. The PUP is as well committed to an elected Senate. The composition of the Elections and Boundaries Commission will be reviewed to ensure that persons of high integrity and impartiality are appointed. The chairperson should be appointed with the approval of the leaders of all parties represented in the House of Representatives. The Representation of the People's Act will be revised to ensure free and fair elections and to avoid such abuses and irregularities as we see taking place with the mass granting of instant citizenship without proper verification and the registering of many such persons on the voters list at addresses where they do not and never did reside. A freedom of the press law will guarantee free speech and protect whistleblowers who expose abuse, acts of corruption, and a waste of resources in public office. The Prevention of Corruption Act 2007 will be reinforced, and the Integrity in Public Life legislation will be given teeth to sanction non-compliance with the requirement for disclosure of income, assets, and liabilities by elected public officials. The PUP will introduce campaign finance legislation to grapple with the vexing problem of money in politics dominating and driving the system. Opposition parties, including third parties, such as the PNP and VIP, will have access to fair, taxpayer-funded campaign funds. Crime, security, and justice. Allow me as well to say a few words about the very, very vexing but critically important issues of crime, security, and justice. I readily concede that for me the most difficult challenge facing us is how to contain crime and arrest that swelling of the ranks of at-risk and unemployed youth. In recent years, Belizeans have lived under the threat of violence and criminality on a scale unprecedented in the modern independent Belize. Law-abiding citizens live in fear. Whenever another murder or robbery or home invasion takes place, people's sense of security is negatively impacted. Investment and economic growth is stymied. When so many of these crimes go undetected, and where the conviction rate of accused criminals is so appallingly low, there is a deep-seated distrust of the police and the system of justice. To effectively address the scourge of violent crime, the PUP will pursue a four-step approach to national security. Fixing the economy is the first step towards reducing crime. Robberies, murder, and violence have a direct correlation to rising unemployment and downturns in the economy. Respect for the rule of law. The PUP will uphold the Constitution as the supreme law of Belize and govern with respect for the equal rights of all. Elected officials, including the Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Ministers, must realize that they are servants of the people and behave accordingly. No one is above the law. The arrogant abuse of power, corruption, and any unjust enrichment in public life will be dealt with by the full force of the law. Strengthening law enforcement. The PUP acknowledges that a new approach to policing to effectively reduce the crime rate must be based on the citizens having trust and confidence in the police. Effective response mechanisms will be implemented to protect life and property, ensuring that more police officers are on the beat, more police booths properly manned and working with neighborhood crime watch groups, tourism police, and special constabulary. The use of security cameras in crime-sensitive areas will be deployed. The gang suppression unit has lost, regrettably, the confidence of the Belizean people and will be replaced with a more effective anti-violence unit. The PUP will give full support to a reorganized and motivated police department with high professional standards, good public relations, better trained and equipped with improved conditions of service, led by a competent Belizean Commissioner of Police who commands the respect of officers and the community at large. The forensic science program will be made fully operational to enable DNA testing and an up-to-date ballistics registry. We will wage an aggressive campaign against drug traffickers, recognizing that the transshipment and importation of cocaine and the proliferation of firearms within Belize pose a serious threat to the security and welfare of the nation. The services of law enforcement experts from abroad will be utilized as advisors and consultants without prejudice to our sovereignty and in practical acknowledgement of the enormous resources available to transnational criminals and organized crime. The criminal code will be amended with a stand your ground provision for citizens to be even more justified in the defense of their home, to use all necessary force to repel any intruder. The reform of the justice system continues to be a pressing issue. The independence of the judiciary and the integrity of judges and magistrates must be jealously safeguarded and upheld. The new PUP administration will undertake a comprehensive program to modernize the court system so as to achieve greater efficiency, speedier trials, and more effective disposal of cases, with a goal of eliminating the backlog of cases which makes a mockery of the administration of justice. The reform of the prison service must continue. Convicted prisoners must be securely held. Measures to rehabilitate prisoners, especially first-time offenders, must be balanced with programs for them to engage in productive work. Community service as alternative sentencing will be established on a more organized basis with proper supervision, especially for persons convicted of minor offenses, such as possession of a small quantity of marijuana. The Belize Defense Force has a pivotal role to play in national security. A PUP government will strengthen its capability, both human and institutional, to better patrol our borders, to prevent and apprehend incursions into our territory of persons engaged in illegal farming and harvesting of satay and other forestry products. The BDF will also be kept engaged alongside the police in the fight against organized crime. An independent Citizens Complaints Bureau with necessary legal authority will be appointed to address allegations of abuse by security forces. The sanctity of citizenship must be restored. With this in mind, we will appoint an independent commission to review immigration policy and laws and implement its recommendations. A law will be enacted to stop the issuance of nationality certificates, nationalization, 3 months before national and municipal elections. I acknowledge that I have thrown out a lot today, but I have sought to do so with a sense of purpose, direction, and urgency. There is no time to waste. I offer to you today a government that will be engaged, focused, and competent. As the leader of that government, I will at all times be prepared to sit with you, work with you, listen to you, and learn from you. Working together, we can put Belize back to work and make Belize work for all Belizeans. My vision for Belize is one in which our children are born into strong, functional families, receive a quality education, which equips them with the knowledge, skills, and attitudes required to find or create employment, and lead lives of dignity while raising a family and preparing for a comfortable retirement. This must be our shared vision. If Belize is to grow and develop, all of us must be committed to a strong Belizean economy and society, grounded in credible, practical plans and solutions to the social and economic challenges we face. My party and I are prepared to lead Belize on this new, exciting path. I ask for your support not only for March 7th, but more importantly, on March 8th, when the work begins. Thank you, and may God continue to bless our beloved Belize.